Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT Americas Week 5 power rankings and predictions. Final week of Americas. I don't think too many of the games matter this week. Obviously, the 100 Thieves Crew game is a big game. Sen 2G matters for Sentinels, but nothing else really. The 4 Alpha teams are kind of locked up. But in Omega, you do still have 3 teams that could get that 1 seed in G2, Cloud9, and MIBR, but as long as G2 wins, they should be able to get that 1 seed. I mean, even if MIBR wins, I think it still has to go down to like map and round differential, which G2's only like they're not going to get 2-0'd by C9, and they're 8-2 map diff. The other two teams have lost 3 maps as well, so I would imagine G2 will be the top on Omega, and then obviously you have that big game of Lev versus NRG that will decide who makes it to playoff. So should be an interesting week in Americas, but there's not a ton of games that matter too much. But if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe. Really helps me out. Also, if you guys are interested in how I would maybe rank individual players and stuff like that, you can go follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description. As of recording this, I just posted my America's player rankings as well as my EMEA ones a few days ago. So you can go check that out. Also, I'll probably be having my Pacific one up within the next few days, just because I'm still catching up on those games. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So we'll start with this bottom tier of teams that are just bad. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The two teams, you got Furia, who, again, they looked good on Lotus this week against Cloud9. And then they just looked terrible on the next map, which was Pearl again. And yeah, I don't really have too much else to say other than the fact that, yes, Furia is bad and they need to make some roster changes heading into stage 2. Maybe even now. I think it was Giants that made the changes already, and Furia didn't. So yeah, they need to do it as soon as possible. Try to change up some things in this team. Maybe have a decent run in stage 2. But honestly, this org has never been good in Valorant, and I highly doubt it'll start now. Then I have 2G, the other team in this tier. I think some of these other teams that were down here kind of escaped this like terrible, like just complete glue tier. Obviously, there's some teams that are close to it now and moving down, but I think these two teams have consistently been your two worst teams week to week in Americas, and yeah, that'll keep them in this bottom tier. I mean, 2G against 100 Thieves, they showed some fight. They played well on Ascent again, but that that defense side was not great, if I'm being honest. From them, I mean, 100 Thieves played terribly on their own defense side, but G2, 2G played well on that attack side of Ascent. It was just the defense side kind of let them down a little bit and made it so 100 Thieves were able to close that out. So they're not bad on that map. I think it's very similar to Furia, but I think they're also better on the rest of the maps. Whereas Furia is just like the rest of the maps are almost unplayable for Furia, whereas 2G they can kind of compete a little bit on some of the other maps outside of Ascent. Now into this next tier of teams that have either barely just made playoffs this week or could potentially make playoffs if they win this week. Now there's one team that doesn't fit this description, but I do think they're good enough to be in a tier with the rest of these teams, so I did feel like I had to keep them in here. Now, it'll start with NRG, who are going to move down 3 spots. I mean, they've probably been this bad most weeks, if I'm being honest. Like, when when would you say that? I mean, Cloud9, I don't think that they were the 10th worst team in the league. And Fury, I don't think they were. But these last 2 weeks against G2 and MIBR have just been bad. And they just haven't looked that great. Like, they don't look like a team with the talent that they have on paper. So, yeah, they're just going to move down 3 spots. I think everybody kind of understands, like, the issues with NRG in terms of, like, I think lack of firepower is a big thing, and then their just general like situational awareness just doesn't feel good anymore. Like in terms of like what each player should be doing micro wise at every moment, and their understanding of the meta is just not good enough right now to compete. I think everybody talks about energy a lot. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here on them just because I don't feel like I need to. But then we have EG, who this week they destroyed Crew. Like absolute belt to ass. Now, do I think EG was unbelievable in this game? No, I thought they were good. I thought they were good, and they had a ton of great individual performances. I thought Icy. I saw people saying that he was meh, specifically on Plat Chat, like he wasn't like a amazing. He didn't have an amazing game. I thought he was insane in this game. Like he was just popping heads on everybody. Maybe the Pearl was a little bit worse, but I do think the Lotus from him specifically was really nice. Nature was incredible in this game, and so was Superman. Derek was good as well, and I think Ye, who he was mentioned on Plat Chat as somebody who was and I do agree that Ye was not super great in this game, despite EG playing really well and him still playing well. I just don't think he was like amazing. But also like Crew just I mean I'll talk about it later. Crew just did not have their monitors on, and I think that did contribute a little bit to some of these individuals playing so well. But I also think with the individuals playing so well this week, them beating a team like Crew, I think their like individual confidence could get a lot higher this week. Going into next week and playoffs, they could actually be a real team. Um, but also at the same time, like it's 1 week. I'm not going to really rate them too high. They play, I believe, Loud this upcoming week. If they beat Loud and they look good in that game, I'll believe a little bit more. But as of right now, I'm not going to be like super high on EG quite yet, especially when players like Superman, who was kind of the big reason they won this game, or at least like the big reason why they won this game so by so much, when he has so many like inconsistent patches in his game where like he'll go on a couple game streak of looking insane and then come back and just be literally the worst player in America's the next few weeks. I don't think he's going to necessarily continue this amazing form into maybe the next. I mean, maybe he'll continue it for like a game or two, but like outside of that, they're not really going to get much out of him from the rest of the games, as they haven't been this year so far. Then I have Loud, which is the one team I believe are just fully eliminated from playoffs. Yeah, because EG's in, so then the other two teams are eliminated. So they are the one team that can't make playoffs here, and they have just lost a ton of games. But I also just think the individual talent on this team is pretty solid. Like Luke Show looks really good. I do think he is a little bit overrated right now just because his stats are so good and he hits so many pop off clips that like a lot of people are just going to be super high on him, which he has been really good. Don't get me wrong, but like every now and then he'll just have a round or two where it's like, how are you not getting that kill? Or like, why is he playing there or something like that? Like the individual decision making isn't fully there. It was something that I didn't love about him in tier 2 when I watched him, but he's still an upgrade for this team. He's been really good. Tui's coming in this week. I I mean, he was fine. He was probably, I mean, he was an upgrade over Vinny in the fact that Pancada's now IGLing, and I think he looked pretty good on that role, as well as in terms of his shooting. He called a pretty nice game. And I believe a little bit more in this Loud roster to actually play the game a little bit better. Like, I just did not like how they were playing before this. So I think they can win some games here. If they were in playoffs, I would say it's possible that they would have won a game. But as of right now, I'm not going to rate them too high just because they did lose this game against Sentinels and kind of get destroyed in that last map. Um, then we have Lev, who were very competitive against G2. I think this team, I mean, this is the best this team has looked all year, obviously. Demon 1 had his best game on Lev as well. Rossi had his best game calling and individually. I mean, honestly, I think you could say every player on this team had their best individual game of the year this week. Maybe you could say some of them against Furia, but that's against Furia, so I don't know how high I would rate that. Um, Maybe against like MIBR at kickoff, you could say for some of them. But honestly, like they just all individually played a lot better, and this team looked like maybe a low end of what they were supposed to look like this year. In terms of just a team that isn't perfect in the micro, isn't like it. It still did feel like that thing that I talk about, where it's like a kind of just a bunch of names, but it's still good. and they're still able to win some rounds with this individual skill. I also think G2 did play their worst game of the year so far. I'll get into that a little bit more later. And they did catch G2 on one of their worst maps in Fracture, probably their worst map. And then they did kind of get destroyed on Haven. They did win pistol bonus to kind of keep that map maybe a little bit close. And I don't know, like they won all but one pistol, I believe. No, okay, they won all but both Fracture pistols, which they then won the anti-eco, or they won the eco round on round 14 in the second half. So there is some fraudulent stuff about how they competed against uh G2, but I still think they looked a lot better and are a team that if they keep improving at this rate, where like they looked better last week against Furia, then they looked better this week against G2. If they keep improving at this rate, they could actually do something in playoffs. Now, is that something maybe making it to Toronto? Probably not. But as long as they keep improving, they should be able to maybe win a game, maybe two in playoffs, and potentially like eliminate a few teams. Now onto the consistently inconsistent tier. I think everybody kind of knows the two teams that I'm going to put in here. We'll start with 100 Thieves. Not moving. They were in this tier last week in this exact spot. I'm going to keep them here. I honestly don't really have much else to say about this team. Like Cryo, he shot his gun again. I still think he's one of the more overrated players in America's. Like, if you go watch the attack side of Ascent for 100 Thieves, the reason that they were losing like what it was like 3-4, like they or wait no, they started out 2-4 on their attack half. The reason it was like that was kind of because a lot of mishaps with Cryo's Yoru. A lot of their defense side was struggling because of Cryo and Yoru. I still don't think Cryo is a good Yoru player. I don't think he's good on anything other than like the Jet and the ISO, really, and some of the smokes agents. I do think he is good at like Astra and Brim. Maybe not the best util usage in the world, but he's still really good on those agents. But overall, I do think he is kind of hurting this team, and everybody else's individual form just kind of looks a lot worse because I kind of just think this team is playing to set up Cryo in 95% of scenarios, which 95 is a lot, but if you get, you know what I mean, like he is being so heavily set up by his team in these scenarios that it's kind of hard for a player of his talent to not be fragging. So I think the like top 2 player in the world in KD, number 1 in VLR rating, is a little bit rich, and I think sometimes he'll have some very odd decisions that lose 100 Thieves some rounds. So I'm not fully there with Cryo on terms of where people think he is, but overall I think the team is good. I mean, Boostio taking 17 first duels across the series to Cryo's 10, it's crazy. Like Boostio went 7-2 on Ascent and 5-3 on Icebox, which is just insane. I don't even know, but like I don't know. This team just needs to be a little bit more coordinated and stuff. Like they'll still do like a weird thing here and there, especially with EU in this game. Like Icebox, I think it was this Icebox, right? Or was no, it was the one against Loud where he just like took the rope multiple times in the half and just sat in the like nest area alone and just died. Um, so yeah, that was weird. I don't know. I think this team is going to be fine. They could maybe get some like an upset win or two in playoffs, but I think their ceiling is limited to kind of how chaotic their style is. And maybe they'll be able to beat somebody because of that, but I highly doubt that. Unless they just hit that individual form that they did in stage 1 last year. That is completely, if that happens, I think they could definitely make it to Shanghai. Not Shanghai. That's the tournament they made last year. Oh my god. They could definitely make it to Toronto, but at this point, I highly doubt that. And then another team in this tier, we have Crew. I am not moving them out of this tier next week. What the fuck happened against EG? Like, literally, what the fuck? If you convinced me that Crew put money on that match and maybe each of them had 2 hours of sleep beforehand, I would believe you. But I just don't know what happened. Literally, like, none of them were shooting, and their just decision making and coordination was really bad on the day. I'm not going to completely freak out about it, but when you had that game against Loud that was very similar to this, except EG was actually playing well, and you lost a map to 2G last week, where you went 6-6 on your defense half of a cent with a double Sentinel comp, and your only win was against Sentinels, where Narrate was playing Sova for the first time on Icebox and shooting the worst Sova darts in the world. And Sen on Lotus as well, who just is not good on that map. I do have my doubts about this team, and they do feel maybe a little bit fraudulent. Like, I would not be predicting this team to make it to Toronto at this point, as well as 100 Thieves. Like, they can get some wins. I think I have more faith in them to make it than 100 Thieves. But as of right now, there are definitely 4 teams that I would prefer to pick to go to Toronto than Crew. And last up here, we have our top 2 tiers, which we'll start with C9. Moving up 1 spot, they beat Furia. I don't really care much about that, but it's kind of Crew moving down for this team. Vic continuing to look really good for this team. I think Mitch is a really nice individual as well. Zeppa not having his best weeks the past few weeks, but still looks really good, or still looks better than he has been. Oxy still looks really good, obviously. Net having a slightly worse week for his standards, but I think with how he's been with how he has played for this team, and what he obviously adds into the comms, I think I can forgive him for playing a little bit worse individually. Overall, C9 looking good. I still don't fully trust them at playoffs. Like, I almost put them in the tier below, but I do think that they do deserve to be in this good teams tier. I would not pick them to go to Toronto, though, mainly just because of how Cloud9 as an organization has performed in playoffs, and that's literally the only reason. So, obviously, my 3 Toronto teams would then be Sentinels, who I have at number 3. We'll talk about them a little bit. They played well against Loud. Split, I thought, was good. They kind of just lost a few rounds towards the end. I think that they should have closed that out a little bit sooner. I'm fine with it. I don't really care. Bang played really well for this team, especially in that map. Lotus was an interesting map. I think sometimes on their Lotus attack sides, it feels like John Cutie just keeps calling the same thing over and over again. Which, I mean, or like the same like 2 things over and over again. Like, their Lotus attack side feels a little bit readable. Where like there was a few times where I like zoned out in the middle of a round, and I went back and was like, am I just watching the same round? So ideally, you don't want that to happen. Their A-Rebel fights weren't going very well for them. You'd hope that would be better. And they've just had a few games like this on Lotus where they kind of just lose it out towards the end, specifically against Loud at kickoff. But Haven, they were able to close it out. I mean, this team should be fine. They're relatively solid. They'll have a game where they play bad every now and then, but I do trust the experience on this team over pretty much almost every other team outside of G2 in Americas to kind of get them through these like close games, especially in playoffs, to qualify for international events. I think they should be in a good spot to qualify and make it to Toronto. Then I have MIBR. Not much really needed to say here. They beat on NRG this week, as I have NRG rated 10th. I don't think that's much of a like big deal, honestly, but Cortasia's still playing well. Gianum still playing well. Artscene playing a little bit worse as an individual as of late, but still calling really well. Verno, I mean, had the game of his life. Revenge game against NRG, obviously played really well. And then obviously Osboss still playing well, as he usually does. I mean, I think this team's been underrated all stage. I think this is the time that they're finally getting their flowers as the second best team in Americas. But obviously the best team is G2. Now, as I said before when talking about Lev, this was the worst week that they had played. There was definitely some individual mishaps in terms of just players kind of not playing to that super high level. I think they were kind of just relaxed this week. Like, all the clips in the comms just did feel like they were kind of just, I don't want to say on autopilot, but like close to it. they had to play Fracture, which is probably their worst map that they actually play. Yeah, there's no way they just banned it against, no, they banned Icebox against NRG. Interesting. Or they banned Fracture against NRG. So they do target ban Fracture or Icebox depending the team. They haven't had to play Icebox, I believe. Yeah, they didn't. Okay. So they haven't had to play Icebox. If they have to play that or Fracture, I don't know exactly where I would rate those. But that is an issue for them. They only have really like a 5-map pool, but that's not terrible by any means. Like they're still really good on all the other maps. Lotus was kind of close. I think Lev just played really well. I think a lot of this was just Lev playing well. But also, like, again, just the individual level didn't look quite as dominant from G2, and there was still some, like, tiny mishaps in terms of microplay that you don't want to see. But again, it just felt like this team was kind of relaxed, taking the week a little bit easy, just based on comms and just how they were playing and everything like that. So overall, just not panicking about G2, but it was definitely the worst that they played. Now onto my pick 'em. So last week I said that I would be surprised if I did not go 6 for 6 in my pick'ems, and I was surprised because Crew did lose to EG. Everything else I got right, which I don't think is much of an achievement because I think all these games are very, very easy to pick. Obviously, some were closer than others with the Sen Loud game and the G2 Lev game, but overall, just not really anything interesting happening this week in Americas. I kind of struggled for things to talk about in the power rankings because, like, what do I really say? Like all the matchups went the way that we expected. Now G2, Cloud9, I'm just gonna take G2 as I've been doing pretty much every week this season. I'm just gonna pick them to win because they are the best team, and if they lose, they lose. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. MIBR against Furia, kind of same deal, but except I'm picking against Furia because MIBR is just the second best team in Americas. Furia is at best the second worst. So I don't really know what else to say there, honestly. MIBR is just going to win that game. I've probably spent too much time on it already. Then Sen 2G. I do think Sentinels will win this game over 2G. I think there is some upset potential. I'd have to check. What map does Sen ban? Sentinels. They've been banning Fracture against Loud, Fracture against EG, Fracture against Crew, and Fracture against 100 Thieves. So I would imagine they ban it against 2G. 2G might be able to get an Ascent in there in that first round of picks. I think that would be a great pick for them. They should be able to get that map over Sen. The other maps, though, I would pretty much favor Sentinels in all of them, unless they decide to pick like a Lotus or something for some reason, which I would highly doubt. But I think they should just be beating 2Game. They're the better team. They should win this week. And then Crew 100 Thieves. I'm going to pick Crew because I think this was kind of just an off week for them against EG. But also at the same time, like, 100 Thieves has played better these past 2 weeks, honestly. Like, if you take... no. The start to the Loud game was really bad from 100 Thieves. So actually, yeah. It's been... I mean, yeah, actually they have played better because Crew was shaky in this 2G game. 100 Thieves was shaky in this Loud game. They both won against bad teams. And then 100 Thieves were able to beat 2Game pretty easily. Like, it felt comfortable the whole time, except for, I mean, like, the first half of Ascent didn't feel comfortable. But Crew just lost to EG and got destroyed. So I could see picking 100 Thieves. This is kind of a 50-50 for me. But I'm going to pick Crew just because I think they'll bounce back a little bit this week and beat 100 Thieves, which I believe this would make Crew the winner of the group, I think, because they would be 4-1 and have the tiebreaker over Sentinels, and nobody else would be 4-1. Now, the funny thing is, Crew was like the top team in the group, but it lowered 100 Thieves' chances of getting the 1 seed, I believe, because it actually put like Sentinels in a, like, it made it like a 3-way tie where, wait, no, that wouldn't have mattered, I don't think. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have mattered. Never mind. I'm stupid. Because they all would have been 4-1 with a 3-way tie. But then EG Loud, I'm gonna take Loud just because, like, the opposite of what I said about the Crew 100 Thieves game. I think EG will kind of correct to a bit of a worse team. Loud, I think, just has the better firepower overall in terms of the whole season. I think EG could definitely come out and beat them. But as of right now, for this week, I will take Loud just to maybe not bounce back because I think Loud played better in this game than EG had the entire season before this. I also think they played better in this game than EG had in any other game as well. So I think they should be able to beat EG, but who knows? That game is kind of close. This is kind of like a six, maybe like a 55-45 Loud. I would favor them in this game, but overall, still a close game. Then Lev NRG. I would put this at kind of a 60-40 towards Lev. I'm just going to pick them because NRG's looked so bad these last few weeks. I think this is probably what most people will have in their Pickems. Maybe some people will pick 100 Thieves just because of the reactions to this game, which I fully understand. But overall, I think these are pretty much the safe picks in every game, which I've kind of done all year, and it's kind of worked for me. I did some kind of crazy picks in the MEA this week, so if you're interested in that, go check that out. But overall, the safe picks have worked for me. I'm in the top, like 3%, 4% ish. Yeah. I didn't really count this as a whole, like, one uh, in my head. I didn't even try to do the math. I don't know why I even tried to say that, but whatever. Moving on. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe. It really helps me out. Also, go check out my player rankings on Twitter if you enjoyed. Link is in the description to that, and I'll see you guys in the next one for Pacific. Peace.